Hey, everybody, welcome back. I've spoken with parents about overstimulation as a pediatrician for so many years. And, it's a common occurrence for kids. If you think about it, like kids at parties, over the holidays, like the rush of holiday presents. And I go back to thinking about how my kids would want to enjoy the present that they just offered. And yet there's all the different family members that are trying to get them to move on to open the next gift and their gift and kind of like, oh, so many things coming from different directions. And it's also a topic that comes up so much in the office when we are exploring the experiences of kids that are experiencing neurodiversity. But I'm here to say loud and clear, we are all experiencing overstimulation. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with the brain of the child, and I will add the adult, who is experiencing overstimulation. And that's what we're going to explore today about the stimulation and overstimulation. For the longest time in my medical practice, we were looking at kind of searching for a diagnosis. I have a child that's getting overstimulated. Well, what's going on? Is there neurodiversity? And I think we need to just hold right there for a moment. Um, Even exploring just the concept of neurodiversity, that's not a diagnosis. In fact, if we wrap our arms really truly around the concept of neurodiversity, it means that all of our brains work, operate, thrive in various ways. There's no right, there is no wrong, there's no normal, there's no abnormal. Diversity is meaning there is a wide variety of experiences and ways that we function. And it doesn't mean that there's anything broken or needing to be fixed. What I do think needs to be fixed is our environment so that we can all thrive in our own unique ways. So let's dive in a little bit more today. And I have so many stories and just, personal experiences and how that's applying in the lives of my family and maybe seeing how it's something that you can take those pieces and see what works for your family. For our purposes today, this is how I am defining overstimulation and overwhelm, and maybe making a distinction between the two. Stimulation is what we are receiving from our environment. So the stimulus is coming, towards us, into us from the environment. Overstimulation is when it is more than we can process or juggle or tolerate at one time. And overwhelm is the internal, the emotional experience that we have when when there's more than what one can process or juggle or tolerate at one time. So overwhelm is the emotional internal experience of the external overstimulation. All right, so let's go back to the stories. Okay. Think about it first for your own perspective. Like, when have you felt overwhelmed? Just think of a particular time. For me, overwhelm is something that I know very well. It's that feeling that I come back to those moments of having, too much too quickly. I can't juggle it all. I'm continuously trying to switch channels in my brain. I have a spinning kind of feeling when I'm thinking about that experience of overwhelm, and think about all the things like there's the computer pinging and the kids are in the background and my phone is ringing and my colleagues are asking me, and just a quick question, and I need to pee, and there's crying in the background, and I'm hungry, and like all the different things that are coming at me, and I am just trying to switch gears all the time. And part of what I want to highlight here is that part where it's about there's just too much. too quickly. There's too much coming in for what I can pace through and go through on my terms. And to be honest with you, it's something that happens very much in trauma. As we talk about, the trauma of having too much coming at us too quickly, the nervous system is being overwhelmed with whatever is going on, and it's leading us to carry the wounds of those experiences into the future. Now, not all overwhelm is leading to trauma, but yet I keep on reminding myself it's still too much, too quickly. And we're having a neurologic response to all of this coming at us, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, and I'd offer, or meltdown. So this happened to me last week. Here's your story. My husband invited me to go to a concert with him. And it was a Pink Floyd cover band. And I was like, I've never been a big Pink Floyd fan, but you know what? I'm a big fan of my husband. So I'm going to go with him. Why not? And I thought briefly, it's been a while since I'd gone to a concert, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll take some headphones. I'm kind of sensitive to noises. And I completely forgot about it in the hubbub of the excitement of getting ready and actually going out on a date night. So I showed up, no ear, anything. When the concert started, my head started pounding with the beat of the drums. But it was the sounds, it was the lights. There were all sorts of like lasers that were piercing out into the crowd, and it kept on like blinking. And I noticed myself wondering, what does it feel like before someone has a seizure? Like there was just so much coming at me, the sounds, the lights, all of it. And so I got up and I went to the bathroom and I made some makeshift earplugs with toilet paper. A spoiler, that is completely ineffective. So I went back to my seat to join my husband, and again, I just felt this barrage coming at me of lights and lasers, and it felt like it was like piercing my soul. The noises were so loud and so just freaky. I mean, it's Pink Floyd, it's weird. Everybody else was having the time of their lives. And I was there just trying to shrivel up. I felt nauseated, and I just felt like I was frozen. I closed my eyes. I swallowed repeatedly to try to figure out how to do that thing, where I could like pop my ears or get something in my ears so that, I could protect them. And eventually I reached this point where I just started to tear up. And I told my husband I'd just meet him outside. Mind you, this was not early in the concert. I went through this for a very long time trying to figure out how I could make this better. Oh gosh, the tears just came to me when I went out into like the open area where they had like the food stands, and it was basically the front of the concert area. It was so much quieter out there, not quiet, but I could actually like hear the words to the songs that the singers were actually singing, and not just hear the loud clanging and banging. And I noticed that my nausea was decreasing. I just started taking some more deep breaths. I had been doing it in the actual concert area. I was so trying to do breathing, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't helping me out. And I just came to tears. It was tears of relief. And I thought of so many different things. I thought of my patients. I thought of my child who has learned to wear headphones when in crowds. And I thought about, again, that neurodiversity, that it was the explanation for needing the headphones to help decrease the stimulation. And, as I thought about it, there were a few options that I had that evening. as far as how I wanted to approach this. And behind door number one was to think about what was wrong with me. Where am I on a spectrum of diagnoses? What could I have done differently so that, what was wrong with me? Everybody else was enjoying themselves. And behind door number two was quite honestly learning about what it is that I need and what the heck I don't need. And I chose to see that it's not about making it about what's wrong with me, because I firmly believe that there is nothing wrong with me when I look at it in the big picture. But in that moment, I came back to what's wrong with me. No, let's not do that. And the other thing that I firmly believe is that there is nothing wrong with my child who sees that this is something that helps them to be able to wear the headphones. When I look at, something being wrong, it means that something needs to be fixed. But honestly, I think of it as now I have an opportunity to see what it is about the way that my brain's working in this particular environment. And that's all it is, period. This is how my brain's working, what's working for it, and how I can support it. My brain is totally working. Our kids' brains are totally working. All of our brains are working. What isn't working is the environment that we are putting our brains and our bodies into. The environment is what's effed up. There's just collectively too much stimulation. I notice it. Oh, goodness. See, this is how you know it's real deal. When we get emergency alerts while we're doing recordings. Here, let's pause this for a minute. And as soon as I stop it, of course, it comes, the alarm stop. So anyway, it's really that there's just too much stimulation. And when I notice this in particular is when I step out of my day to day for just a moment. So I was recently overseas. And so that was stepping out of my usual day to day experiences. And so when I came back home, things were new again. I've noticed this before. And, even starting back, my goodness, as I was a 16-year-old kid, I went off on an exchange program to Russia. And when I came back, then I felt overwhelmed in the grocery store. Happened again this time. Happens each and every time I come back from being overseas. There's so many options and colors and smells and brands just demanding my attention when I go to the grocery store. When I go out to eat in restaurants after, enjoying some peace at home for a period of time, like I'm used to the volume and the environment at home. When I go out, I'm bombarded by the volume of the music in the restaurants. And as I think about it, there are sounds and smells and colors and lights and voices and all of it everywhere. It's all the external stimulation. And I notice as I'm describing this to you that there are periods where I'm not receiving that stimulation, and it is soothing to me. And so just trying to figure out what works for you. What is soothing for you? What is a way that works for you? And for me, I'm noticing that all of the things, all the bells and whistles and demands and people and noises, all of this, it's not working for me. It's not. My brain works best when I'm cutting through all of that, where I have times to be able to take it one step at a time, where I have quiet. I'm not a quiet person. I'm actually quite a loud person. But again, it's not about that projection. It's about the things that I'm receiving, that stimulation from the outside environment. So what do? I'd like to share my practice with you. And so I think number one is just noticing. Yeah, it feels really bad to have that emotional experience, that feeling of overwhelm. And yet, it's also liberating to call it out. This is overwhelm. I did it the other day at work. I had all these different people that wanted to come up and talk to me at the same time. And I noticed it, that's spinning. And so I just call it out in my head. This is overwhelm. And I paused there and I felt it. I felt all the spinning and I just named it overwhelm. Where is it that you feel it in your body? I feel it more often than not as that spinning in my head well before there's any kind of nausea or anything else going on. What I do is I just take one deep breath and let it out even slower than I brought it in. This is overwhelm. Number 2, I remind myself there is nothing wrong with me. When I'm doing that, it's an active process of not judging myself for what I'm experiencing right now. And it kind of is welcoming this compassion, this understanding, this kindness. There's nothing wrong with me. And it opens me up for the next step. And that's number 3, to ask, what is it that I need right now? Hun, what do you need? Ask yourself, check in with your body. Ask it, what is needed? Is it to close your eyes and take another deep, slow breath? By the way, that totally activates the vagus nerve, and it is a primo way of calming the nervous system. I use it on the regular. I teach it to my kids. I share it with my clients and my patients because it disrupts that pattern of that bombardment of the nervous system. It's internally trying to calm the nervous system while we're trying to sort out how can we get rid of some of that external stimulation. What is the one step, just one step that you can take to provide what it is that you need right now? Is it a step outside? Is it to choose what you want to focus on right now? As I had all those people coming up to me at the same time wanting me, and I chose, I'm going to talk to this one person right now, and then I will get to you. Is it to bathe yourself in quiet and stillness? Number 4, breathe. Yeah, I keep coming back to it. Even before, finding myself in moments of overwhelm and overstimulation, I practice finding quiet, enriching moments. And this is like creating a practice, doing the reps, the practice ahead of time, so that during the game time, when stuff is really hitting the fan and I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I can turn to the practice of taking a deep breath. I know how it feels amazing and that it is there when I need it. I can turn to it. Now, number 5, something else, just kind of putting out there, notice the desire to turn to electronics. Electronics are everywhere, our phones, our computers, games. We think that they will help when we're feeling all of these things and we just want to calm. But what they're actually doing is distracting us from that overwhelm. And it's actually providing a stimulation in another way. The electronics are kind of numbing and comforting, distracting us, but not actually getting to the neurologic de-stimulation that I found is much more effective to offer healing. So just noticing, I want to grab my phone, I want to scroll on Facebook and just kind of get away from this. But is that really what's helping me break through this overwhelm? To first be there with it, understand it, and then take a step to decrease that stimulation. And then the last thing that I look at is questioning the assumption that overstimulation is normal. Oh, God, our society is not normal, whatever the heck normal is anyway. But we don't have to accept the status quo. It's not working for so many of us. We were not meant as humans to be completely, constantly bombarded by noise, lights, volume, voices, being tasked in every different direction all the blessed time. And we were not created to be tethered by electronics that keep on pinging and binging and demanding our attention. I speak about all of this in the first person because it's talking about my experience, sharing how it's impacting me, because this is where it all starts for us as parents and adults to understand our own experiences and to call it out. Our kids are stressed too, and it's not a problem with the kids. It's like something where we have to question all the things that we just think are just the way it is, that they need to cope, that they need to figure it out. No, we need to find an environment that is nurturing for them. It's not about coping. It's about finding a new way, finding a way that actually works. So it's about questioning it, fighting it. Yeah, fighting it, fighting it. This is not the way that I want to live. The stimulation is still going to be in the environment. Our society has been built upon this more is better and marketing and lights and bells and whistles. It's capitalism. And it's trying to sell us on the idea that there's an answer out there and that we are the problem. That's a lie. It's not working for us. It's totally not working for us. So for me, I'm practicing that breath and a deliberate practice of single tasking, building in breaks, pacing, listening to my body. It's not the cure to overwhelm. It's a step to making peace with it, understanding why it's there, and shifting to a place where I can lovingly give myself what I need in the moment. That's what I want to teach and share with my kids. Heck, it's what they're teaching me right now. So love to hear what this brings up for you. As always, drop me a line, Wendy at wendychauffeurmd.com. Love you. I'll see you next week.